Oh crap, I don't have control. What am I doing with my life? No. Probe control to Major Tom. Where are the ground stations? I don't want to launch this vehicle again. I don't want to do another one. To acknowledge this little guy's sacrifice. Oh jeez, he's gone completely. Hello everyone and welcome back to that one playthrough of Kerbal's space program. I am Kyle once again, and we find us observing our little, I was about to say geostationary, but that would have been definitely wrong. No, this is a altimeter scanning satellite that we put into orbit in the last episode, although this is technically not the same universe in which we put it into orbit, as we well know. Yeah, this little guy, he made it into orbit with a lot more fuel actually than the one that I demonstrated with via the other save file where I launched the rocket actually from. In fact, this one did so much better. It's got an additional 123 meters per second of delta V, and for some reason it's actually in, well, yeah, I think it's actually in a slightly bigger orbit. So I think what happened with the ascent that I demonstrated was the rocket actually, I kind of kept veering off of the prograde marker to kind of try and change the trajectory slightly, change our inclination, and that obviously wastes a little bit of fuel, which is why when I did the demo in the last one on the other save file to show how the vehicle got into space, I've barely made it. But nonetheless, this thing is here. We have collected the same amount of science via the science mystery goo, and right now this thing has no electric charge, and that is because I believe this thing is just scanning away at the surface. So what we can do is actively come down here into our little altimetry scan, and yeah, we should be able to see that this thing is going pretty smoothly. We've got, I don't know what percentage done. I usually am able to see that 26% or 28%, 28.6%. So it's got a ways to go. I think we need to get to at least 75 to complete the contract, and this might actually tell us 29 out of 75. Yeah, so it's going to keep doing some orbits, keep collecting data as far as measuring the altitude of all the lands and waters and whatnot on Kerbin. And then once we get that complete, we'll be able to transmit that science, which ultimately will help us get to at least 5, I'm hoping, because if we get to 5, then that means I'll be able to do one of the little modules on the tech tree that I want. One that's going to help us with a few smaller fuel tanks that'll hopefully help with more probes that are going to go to other places. But for now, we do have a contract while we wait for that to try and do a flyby of the moon, or mun, however you want to pronounce it, I suppose. It's worth quite a bit, so I'm willing to make a decently oversized rocket to kind of do it. Alright, so the goal of this mission would be to really just do a flyby. So I do want science. I don't have to worry about returning it. I don't think I'm going to worry about that. I could, in theory, start a flyby, go and check the contracts to see if once that one's complete, I can do one for enter orbit. I can then take the same vehicle to enter orbit, then go check contracts again, see if there's one to return from orbit, and then leave, and then come back, and then see if there's one to return science, you know, something like that, so I could get multiple contracts lined up. But I don't really want to kind of, it's not cheating, but I don't really want to have one vehicle that kind of just back and forths into multiple contracts. So I'm going to grab some science, obviously, on this. We'll add a Kerbal engineer on top here. And then really, I mean, there's a lot of things I'd like to grab, obviously. If we can do multiple of the goo containers, I think that's always a good thing, because there's going to be multiple places. There's high Kerbin orbit, which I think we've already gotten, so it would have to be like high moon orbit and low moon orbit. So if we do a flyby that kind of scrapes close to the surface, we could get 2 of those in. I would like to start doing some Science Junior experiments, but obviously this thing is ginormous. I do have the side attached one, but again, when you start to look at the size of this satellite, I'm a little worried. And ultimately, these are not insanely expensive, but you know, as soon as you had 1800 on and you know it's going to be disposable, it makes me a little nervous. So ultimately we'd get high moon and low moon. So that's 2 on the thermometer, 2 on the barometer, 2 mystery goos. That's a pretty good amount. 6 experiments should give us a good amount of science. Would like to make sure this thing's got plenty of electricity. Maybe 3 solar panels actually. 3 solar panels would be a little easier because that will actually give up 1 free part because we want to pay attention to part count. I haven't upgraded the VAB yet to allow for more parts. I think maybe after this contract is completed, it'd be pretty easy to have a couple more, or not, to add a purchase for the VAB, upgrade that, maybe even the launch pad, so I can have just bigger vehicles altogether. 3 batteries seems like a lot, but I think it might be worth it, especially if we do a flyby and we happen to go behind the moon, or on the dark side rather, and that causes us to lose electrical charge. We're still going to want to be able to collect data, and then when we kind of whip back out, maybe we transmit it. It all depends on where we enter and actually where the pass occurs. We need to get some communications. I'm going to add 1 for redundancy and 2 for the sake that we're going to be a distance away that I'm not sure what the transmit range is going to initially be. Because just like the planets being bigger in this system, I believe they are further away. Alright, this thing will probably need some beefier fuel tanks. What I need to kind of figure out is how far I can get on something small like this. So if I use the Pug 1800. So looking at the Delta V map for JNSQ, so the transfer to the moon is 1545, capture is 375, ascent is 880. So we are looking at like 2900 Delta V, give or take, in total. 2900, that's a lot. Now granted, we're only going to have to worry about the transfer, and I'm not going to worry about capture at this point too. So 1545, we'll say once this thing is into orbit, I want to have 1600 Delta V, because I'll want to be able to do some kind of maneuvers along the way, potentially just to line up and not run into the moon accidentally or anything like that. Okay, so the Pug, even though it weighs more, what is the weight on this? 0.4, this is 0.02, 315, ISP 330, so the Pug is more efficient, but I would think that because it weighs so much more that it actually wouldn't have more Delta V, but it does. That is very interesting. I'm probably actually better off just throwing on like this big fuel tank and then going like that. I mean, that's 2700. That's a little excessive actually. Oh, this is, no, I was in vacuum. Bizarre. Well, heck, okay, I guess I'm better off just kind of doing this big fuel tank and then throwing on a Pug. 2700 Delta V. So if I subtract 1600, we'll say 1150. There's 1150 that can help me get to orbit. Thrust is massive on this thing. It seems a bit overpowered, but I don't know. I should, with something this big, actually throw on a better reaction wheel. I'm gonna go like that. I should probably put a load bearing on this as well, just to cover it up and give it some protection. Which means if that's the case, I kind of need like a sloped fuel tank. I feel like I don't like how this looks. I don't have the fairing that's this size, it's only the small one. Bummer, dude. I feel like we're just tanking in efficiency at this point. Let's go like this. I got a better idea. I'm gonna just go tiny tank on here. Would this get me in a transfer? No, it would not. Gotta go probably at least twice that size. That would not do a transfer either. Okay, maybe this isn't the best plan. This is gonna be tough. Like, I could totally over-engineer this in this fashion, which is fine. I just don't like how there's space now between the fairing and this blunt force vehicle. So if I just add a structural piece, obviously it's more aerodynamic, but I'm gonna end up carrying this chunk of hardware into space, and it does nothing except for work on making things a little more aerodynamic in the atmosphere. Nonetheless, though, this will get me to cross paths with the moon once this is in orbit, as long as I don't use any more than 800 of that Delta V to get to orbit, which means we probably need a second stage that's gonna do most of that work. I could go with the Valiant again. Be low on thrust. Again, I need at least 4,900 for the orbit, and then another 1,600 to go fly by the moon, so I'm 800 short. I could, as I think about it, I already unlocked this split adapter. I could throw 2 Valiants on there as one stage, and that would give us a pretty healthy number, as well as better thrust in the atmosphere to really get us off the ground. Now this has, these are gimbaling engines. This could do it without fins too, because that would be extra added weight. So if I could reduce the need for fins, having 2 gimbaling engines, if I'm efficient with this first stage, efficient with the second one, this could do it with, I'm thinking 150 free delta V left over, if my quick math looking at Kerbal Engineer here is correct. You know what, we're going to go for it. We're going to call this the Cheese Knife 1, because we're about to go cut some cheese, just scrape on by it. Alright, there we go. 2 Triumph boosters. We got the channel logo on there, T1P, and then of course our little tree logo. Let's go ahead and just put on some little launch clamps here. Just like that. We're actually, with all the logos and everything I put on here, I'm capped out on parts now, so let's hope this thing does what it's supposed to do. I'm just now realizing how risky this mission actually is, because I do not have any of the orbital flight planning capabilities, so I can't make maneuver nodes. But I think I can do this all with Kerbal Engineer. I've done it before in vanilla. JNSQ, though, might create the death of me at this point if I try to do something this risky, but we're going to attempt it nonetheless, because I am feeling confident. Checking all the stages here first off, we want to make sure that, yeah, we are feeling comfortable. I think I'm going to move the fairing at least to there. I might blow it up earlier. We shall see. But without further ado, we're going to try and take the cheese knife on its way to grab some delicious, delicious cheese. And I'm hoping that an engine purely controlled by gimbal is going to be okay. So first attempt within this playthrough, within this save file. I know there's lots of engines that do it just fine, but hopefully these are okay. Seem to be pretty stable so far. We'll see how weight shifts once we empty some fuel tanks, of course. And I'm going to go ahead and start... oh, that's tipping the wrong way. What am I doing? Oh god, I wasn't paying attention to the way I oriented the rocket. Oh gosh, there goes all of the wasted delta V's right away. I'm going to have to be really careful too, because as soon as this thing starts going into a gravity turn, if I can't follow that all that well, the gimbal's not going to be able to control the fact that our trajectory is not in line with the rocket, and that's what's going to potentially cause a tumble. But I also need to make sure that I don't tilt over too far and force an early gravity turn, which then causes me to be in a very poor orbit. I'm going the wrong way again as far as my controls. Come on, Kyle. Pay attention to the nav ball. Already, though, this thing's looking pretty good as far as our apoapsis height. I might actually take my engines down a bit, because we've got quite a bit of thrust now that we're out of the lower part of the atmosphere, because we're already got an apoapsis halfway to space. So I'm actually going to feel more comfortable if I get this tilting over more, and I'm going to kill the engines even more to wait for our prograde marker to actually start moving closer to 45 degrees, because we're not even there, and we're still accelerating even with my thrust this low at the moment. I'm going to start tilting a bit more. This is not leading into a very efficient launch thus far. Oh, here we go. Now we're lined up with the prograde marker. Let's go ahead and turn this into some more horizontal. Let's go ahead and ditch that stage. I believe it has done its job. And ramp it up, and let's just go ahead and get this thing firing early. Actually, it's not really early. It's probably needs to be firing for quite a long time, so I should probably just take advantage of it as long as possible. Our time to apoapsis is decreasing. It's not good. It's actually making me really nervous. Don't like this, actually. It is slowing down, which is a good sign. If I can just keep this thing on the prograde marker, I think we're going to be okay. It's slowing down. The time to apoapsis is slowing down on the decrease. 45 seconds. Maybe I need to try and just keep it with a little more vertical intent here. So I'm going to let the prograde marker sink toward the horizon, but I'm going to keep pointed in the same direction for the time being. And we need to ditch this. Get rid of the excess weight. I'm actually really not liking this now. Time to apoapsis is really decreasing. It is slowing down, I think. No, it slows down too much if I go too close to the prograde marker, so I gotta keep this pointed up a little bit. It's obviously gonna disrupt the efficiency of this considerably. But we really need to try and maintain this as much as possible. 10 seconds. It is slowing down. Come on. I have a feeling this is going to turn around right at the last minute. Ooh, it's kind of slowed down to a pause. Oh, it's going up. Time to apoapsis is going up. This is what we needed. Really inefficient direction on the burn here, but we just got to work with it. Just got to work with it, and we got to stage this next one quickly. Our thrust is a lot higher on this stage. I'm going to take this closer to prograde, but while time to apoapsis is still going up. Ooh, we're pretty comfortable here. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, I don't think we're going to have enough delta V to get to orbit and go to the moon with this. So we need like 1500 and change. We're dipping, yeah, we're into 1500 now. Still not to orbit. Well, bummer. We will make it to orbit pretty easily, but we will not be able to take this to the moon. Alright then, well, a lot of it had to do with the efficiency of, I think, our initial gravity turn. And then stage 2 did not have enough thrust, so I wasn't able to keep lined up with the prograde marker. So that's something we need to keep in mind. This engine, good in vacuum, like we're showing right now, but definitely not quite a second stage engine the way I would hope. What I would like to do though, however, is get this lined up in a position where we at least try to fire the engines in a trajectory that's going to put us in line to potentially cross the moon, just so I can at least see what, 999 delta V is going to do. So we'll go about there. Let's just hit the prograde marker and let's just burn this, because this vehicle really doesn't do us any good at this point. I don't even think any of the science experiments on it are that valuable, because even if we get to high Kerbin altitude, high Kerbin orbit, we've already done all these experiments specifically. So we get to at least do some science for our own sake to see where this thing could have gone. Wow, okay, yeah. That's a pretty good indicator of we've got a long way to go. No worries though. I'm going to orient this thing in a north-south direction compared to the planet. Oh, it just got real dark real fast. Ooh, what a beautiful sunrise. That is a cool shot right there. Alright, in the same spirit of the screw it when we built that thing just to get into space for the first time, I believe I have completed a rocket that should, in a totally over-engineered way, get us to the moon, at least to do a flyby. Heck, it might even put us in orbit if we've got enough left over. It has a delta V budget about 500 over what should be required to go to a flyby of the moon. So, if anything, this should get the job done, more or less. And, oh, we can get rid of this. I think it's going to be good. I think it's going to work perfectly. Nothing's going to go wrong. Knock on wood. Let's just go. Let's just get it over with. We've got 2 thuds on the bottom here to help with the initial thrust because in atmosphere, I can dial this back actually. In atmosphere, it does have quite a bit of thrust, but with just the one Valiant down there, it did not have enough. So we can probably scale it up a little bit. And I'm going to turn not too early here, but this has got a lot of gimbal power as well. So we should have tons of control on this thing. And let's wait until, well, let's get past 10 kilometers, I think. Once we're past 10 kilometers, we can really start to drive the thrust back up. Let's go ahead and let the gravity turn begin here. Because again, it's got a lot of power at the first stage here. Right, I'm going to just let it go up to max thrust. Yeah, this first stage is going to do a lot more good work compared to the last one we had. I did have to make some significant sacrifices on the probe itself to save a lot of weight. I could have added more based on what the delta V requirement should be. You notice our second stage here is now also using a Valiant, just because I wanted to make sure I had enough thrust. And realistically, our apoapsis is already well into space. I'm going to keep some minor thrust here just so we can keep directionally in the right spot, but I'm going to probably, yeah, I'm going to tilt over a little bit more. I want to start picking up some more horizontal speed. I know in the last launch I literally was talking about how inefficient I was by not following prograde, but in this case more horizontal is going to be more gooder. I believe that's what they would have said at NASA. I've already got enough apoapsis. This maximum altitude is pretty good, so I'm just gonna do the slightly less efficient thing. I think it's less efficient, but I would think that once we're comfortably gonna be high enough, we could probably just, ooh, I can ditch my fairing too. Let's get rid of some weight. I would assume that once we know we're gonna be high enough, just adding more horizontal velocity would be the smart thing. But then again, I'm not an engineer. Alright. Let's go ahead and ditch that. And then now we should have 3,000 delta V left within this stage. That should be more than enough to get to orbit and do all kinds of silly things with. I'll wait until I get a little closer to my, well, I gotta burn about, I think I gotta burn about another 1,000 delta V. So let's just keep picking up horizontal momentum here. Time to apoapsis is lowering, but I'm okay with that. Ultimately, this thing should do the job pretty comfortably. Oh, I should probably show off the probe. Like I said, very small CubeSat we went with for a much lighter payload. I figured, my mentality here was, I figured if I can just get this to do the flyby of the moon, I'll get the 100 grand in cash. And then I can use that to start upgrading several other things in the KSC that I need to desperately do to increase part count, to increase the weight of the vehicles, size of the vehicles that I can launch. Obviously that would be the VAB, that would be the launch pad itself. I also need to get patched conics and all those upgrades so that I can actually do maneuver nodes. Within the Kerbin system, like the Moon and Minmus, it's not really that big a deal. I can do plenty of that without worrying about needing to do maneuver nodes, but it will be required for the future. But I think if I can get the part count higher with the increase in the VAB, then I can just still make more big rockets using a lot of these smaller parts. Obviously, if I research bigger parts, bigger fuel tanks, then you don't have to use 2 fuel tanks where you can use 1, so it saves part count, but either way, it's kind of a trade-off. Alright, so we are pretty comfortably up in space. And, ooh, actually looking at this, I only have 1,800 delta V left. I need to be a little more careful. Clearly going prograde and being really efficient with this stuff is going to be way more important. And maybe I should start looking at engines that really do have higher thrust, especially in early stages. Because engines, for the most part, are overpowered in vanilla KSP. But I believe in this version, they're actually considered to be really balanced. meaning that I can't just rely on things like this to do tons and tons of workhorse stuff. I mean, it's doing workhorse stuff right now, but it's not something that I could use as a second stage like I could in vanilla. And I am slowly getting the hang of that. Let's speed this up. Get to... Oh, don't want to overshoot. Oh crap, I don't have control. What am I doing with my life? Oh god. I need control. Somebody speak to my probe before it goes down into the ground. No. I need probe control. Probe control to Major Tom. We're floating down to the ground. Yep, this is not good again. Of course, we are pretty close to orbit, so I shouldn't really be in a dangerous circumstance, I don't think. But this is getting a little precarious. Yep, it's gonna be bad. It's gonna be real bad. What is my altitude? 125. Need to get probe control. Not happening. It's not happening fast enough. Why isn't it happening? Where are the ground stations? Ground stations, I could really use your help. Oh, geez. The little light came on the altimeter. That means we're going down too fast. It's getting dangerous. 20 kilometers until danger zone. I don't want to launch this vehicle again. I don't want to do another one. Well, buckets. This is really upsetting. And we're in the atmosphere now. We will not be going to the moon again, I suppose. Well, things are starting to blow up. Starting to get some heating. Still have no probe control, so that's good. Let's just, you know, take a moment to acknowledge this little guy's sacrifice. Oh, geez, he's gone completely. Yep, not a little sacrifice, definitely a big sacrifice. Okay, well, we should probably just go and try this again. Ooh, nice pretty fireworks show, that's cool. Okay, so the Cheese Knife 3 is a go. We're gonna just try to do this a little more efficiently than we did on the previous one, and obviously get to an altitude that will allow us to stay safely in the sky, in the spacies, before we come plummeting down and don't have probe control, and maybe even try to gather a little bit more momentum before that point as well, so that we can just maybe be in orbit before that becomes an issue to begin with. I'm gonna tilt this thing, I think, a little bit quicker, because I'm feeling like more horizontal a little sooner. I'm still kind of learning based on what my thrust is, what my ascent pattern should be, and I'm usually pretty good at this in KSP and the vanilla, but this is proving to be far more challenging in this format. So bigger planet equals more harder, obviously. At least it's not realism overhaul. I'd probably get my butt handed to me. I'm already feeling like this is way more efficient than the last one. Good, we'll ditch that stage. We are pretty close again. Now the real question is, our connection point via our antenna is... hopefully should be okay even as we reach kind of this peak point. So I'm thinking the goal of going a little bit higher on this trajectory is probably smarter. But obviously it means we're going to be slower at our apoapsis compared to orbital speeds. Again, 3,192 delta V. So my thought process was, even if I add another 1,000, which again, I'm not 100% on what orbital velocity is. I really need to remember that every time I get to orbit, so I can, you know, keep tabs on it on all these ascents. Okay, I'm gonna start burning again. I think around 30 seconds to apoapsis. I don't know how long my burn actually is, because again, I can't do maneuver nodes. But I think if I just keep it pointed in the same direction, this will help us have the most efficient use. Gosh, this thing burns through delta V so fast. Look, I'm not even gaining as much as I'm losing. Can only afford 400 more. This is not good. Oh, we're in orbit. Okay. 1,700. 1,700 remaining. Man, it's a good thing I gave my budget an extra 500. So I need at least 16, I think, to get the flyby. Stage 1. Or not stage 1. Stage 1 is crashed into the planet somewhere back there. But phase 1 of this mission. Far better than phase 1 of the previous one. There is Moon. Moon is there. We are actually just a little too far past where we would want to be, so we're going to do a full orbit. A good spot to burn is actually kind of when you start to see the moon, usually, over the horizon. But ultimately, where this is right now, I feel like I should be able to see the moon. Where is the moon? Moon? Hello, moon. Actually, you know what? Moon is in the way, the sun is on the other side, so I'm probably just going to see a dark shadow. I wouldn't see it. It's a new moon at the moment, so that's how space works. I'm going to go slightly further. Right about there. Okay. We're going to go hard to prograde. Maximum thrust. And see if this completes what we're hoping it's going to complete. Okay. Looking good so far. Still got 1,000 delta V. Obviously, this ring is going to grow exponentially. Orbit is getting there. Might have been a little too far back, the optimal position. Okay. Gonna let this go nice and smooth. Now, I have no idea if that's gonna do the trick. We are just about in the correct plane, I think. And I'm hoping we should get an encounter. Of course, I have no idea if that's gonna happen. So, while we're waiting though, we can check our little altimeter probe because I believe it is done doing its job. Let's double check. It's still altimetizing. Let's see. It has completed. Is that 100%? That looks pretty much 100%. What does this one say? Yeah, 100%. Okay, perfect. So we can actually have it stop doing that. And then we can analyze the data. And then we gotta wait, we'll probably have to wait for it to charge back up on the batteries. I don't have probe control, so that's one problem. Our batteries are charging very slowly. And it's because they're not really facing the sun very well. And then we're gonna dip it this way. There we go. And be a little bit this way. There we go. So we are very vertically oriented, and then we can get that solar panel to face the right direction so we get faster charging. Okay, I'm gonna give that a go. I think it should be enough to transmit this. No usable comms device. Oh my god. No, there's definitely a comms device, okay? Let me just tell you. Oh, actually I have no probe control. That's probably the main issue. Okay, go back to finding probe control. Come on, ground stations. Give me some love. Really not getting any love. Oh, there's one. Okay, got it. Transmit the data. Transmit. Go, 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 go. Yeah, science, yeah. What should that give us? Ooh, quite a bit, actually, which is a good thing. Because we can then come in. Why does this say map legend? Why is that stuck on my screen? What is this bug? I don't like it. Anyways, back in here. Tech. I want custom fuel tanks. It gives me all the tiny ones. These are my favorites. I love the tiny ones. And monoprops. Those are good. Grab that. I don't think... Yeah, we won't be able to grab anything else for a while. Hopefully, if we go to the moon at some point. But until the point where our probe gets to the moon, I am Kyle. This has been that one playthrough of Kerbal Space Program, and I hope to see you again in the next episode. Have a wonderful day.